Happened about 29 hours ago and continues to be under investigation. There are some things regarding this investigation that I will not be able to talk about. I'm going to give you a statement, and we will then take some questions that you may have. At about 9:43 yesterday morning, we received a medical call at Paisley Park in Chanhassen. Chanhassen Fire, the Carver County Sheriff's Office, and Ridgeview Ambulance all responded to the call. That is our standard protocol. It is not unusual at all for us to have everybody respond to a medical like that. They found an unresponsive male in the elevator. CPR was initially started, but was unsuccessful. He was pronounced deceased at 10:07. We have identified him as Prince Rogers Nelson, 57 years old. Staff members from Paisley Park had been unable to contact Prince yesterday morning and went to check on him. They found him unresponsive and called 911. Deputies went through the building to make sure that there was nobody else inside. Because this was an unwitnessed death of a middle-aged adult, the decision was made to process the scene. That is also normal protocol. It is not different from what we normally would do. There should be no, we ended up contacting the Hennepin County Crime Lab to help us with that, and there should be no inference taken from that. It's not unusual for them to come out and do those types of calls. We finished with our processing late yesterday afternoon and turned Paisley Park back over to Prince's representatives. Again, because this investigation is ongoing, I will not be answering questions on whether or not there are any items that were taken during our processing. The Midwest Medical Examiner's Office was contacted, and Dr. Quinn Strobel, who is the Carver County Medical Examiner, responded. There were no obvious signs of trauma on the body at all. The body was transported to Dr. Strobel's office for an autopsy, and that is being done today. Results from that autopsy may take several weeks, which is not unusual. Again, this will continue to be an open investigation until the autopsy results come back, and we are ready to take questions that you may have. Yes, ma'am.
One of the 911 callers said that there were people in the home who were distraught. Could you tell us any more about who was in the home with Prince at the time of his death?
There were some staff members that were there that had went to check on him, and that's all I'm going to respond to with that at this time.
Is there a suicide note found?
I am not responding to any kind of questions regarding what may have been taken. We have no reason to believe at this point that this was a suicide. But again, this is early on in this investigation, and it's continuing to, we'll continue to investigate.
Sure. Any indication how long he had been in that elevator? Had he been wearing the clothes from the night before? Was he wearing new clothes?
We have not received that information from the medical examiner's office at this time. It had not been in the couple of minutes before first responders had arrived. And it had not been within the couple of minutes before the first responders had arrived with that.
Sure. You said he's a very private person, or wasn't a private person. Was he a healthy person?
I'm not the right one to answer that. We'll let the medical examiner talk about that when that time comes.
Prior to 4:21 p.m. yesterday, were there any medical calls made to that address in weeks before?
I have checked calls for service in our log for that address, as well as for in Prince's name directly. There were no calls involving Prince in the past year that we have had. Paisley Park, Prince does some concerts there sometimes and get-togethers and so on. So it's not unusual for us to receive calls at Paisley Park itself. There was nothing that I'm aware of that involved Prince directly at Paisley Park. Sir, go ahead.
BBC News.
Yes.
Are you able to confirm whether Prince was taking any medication at the time of his death?
I am not able to confirm that at this time at all.
Sure. Can I ask you a question over here?
Sure, sir.
You can
explain to us, give us an idea of what the investigation will entail now, what types of people, I know you're not going to give us specifics, but what types of people will you be interviewing? I know this is a long, detailed process. It's more than just what happens here with the body.
Yeah, we'll be talking to people that are close to him. We'll be gathering some medical records and taking a look at those between us and the medical examiner's office and working off of it from there.
Sheriff, when you say staff members were inside the home,
Yes.
Were they there before he collapsed from the elevator? Is there a timeline for how long he did the home by himself? Do you have any of that information so far?
They were trying to reach him yesterday morning, and were unable to reach them. Reach Prince. So they responded to Paisley Park to look for him and found him unresponsive in the elevator.
So he was alone at home?
That is correct. Yeah, we did not, we did clear and go through the residence at the time and did not find anybody else there.
Sheriff, Derek Hinkle, AFP. Are you cooperating with any other jurisdictions, and are you looking at all into the flight that had an immediate return to Illinois?
We will be looking at all of that. Yes.
Sheriff,
Can you tell me what you've done so far, or you're just looking into it?
Our detectives, this is 29 hours old, our detectives are currently working on this case, so there are things that they are working on.
Are you cooperating with any other jurisdictions?
Yes, of course we are. We always cooperate with them.
If I could ask for clarification, you said
Sure.
that there were no calls involving Prince in the last year. Are you aware of any hospital visits that he may have had recently?
There are no calls involving the Carver County Sheriff's Office that I'm aware of.
I know you said you wouldn't get specific about things that were taken out of the home, but was there medication taken out of the home?
Again, I'm not going to get specific on what was taken or was not taken from the home.
Do you know if there have been these reports that he could have been on some sort of medication, Percocet, things like that. Have you gotten any evidence of that? Have you talked to anyone about that?
This case is currently under investigation, and I'm not going to talk about that at this time.
All you got investigations from Mullen, Illinois, as well as his pharmaceutical records locally?
We will be, between us and the medical examiner's office, we will be looking at all of that, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
There are reports that he frequented a local Walgreens several times in the past. Have you been there to talk to the employees there? Have you pulled any surveillance video, and what have they said?
That is part of the investigation, and that would be our normal protocol, certainly, to pull any type of video or so on. So that's not what I said. I said that would be our normal protocol. This case is 29 hours old, and it continues to evolve for us. So,
Sheriff, how detailed are your crime scene investigators?
excuse me.
Sorry, Sheriff. How detailed are your crime scene investigators working in this processing this scene? Can you kind of talk to us about how meticulous you guys are working and who's helping you?
Well, Hennepin County Crime Lab is helping us from a processing standpoint, and they are meticulous. That is what they do. So they are very meticulous. Photos and so on.
Is there any indication of how long he was in the elevator? Had it been overnight, do you believe?
We're going to wait for the medical examiner's office to give us some of that information. And I cut somebody off over here. Yeah, ma'am, I'm sorry.
It's actually a question for the medical examiner, so...
Sure. And she's the public information officer. She's not the medical examiner.
Yes. So is there any sign of a drug or prescription drug overdose found at the video?
There's no information at this time in regard to exactly what you're talking about as part of the investigation. Let me give you a little bit of background about Midwest Medical Examiners. We are working as part of the investigative team with the Sheriff's Office, so much of the answers that I will be able to give you today will include the word pending. So we received the call at 10:12 yesterday morning to come and assist the Carver County Sheriff's Office in this investigation. Our chief medical examiner arrived on the scene at 11:30 yesterday morning, local time, and was on the scene for several hours. The autopsy this morning began at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time and concluded at 1 p.m. And just shortly I received word that his body did leave Midwest Medical Examiner's office and was released to the family. As you know, it was a very meticulous exam. It was a complete exam. And so several of the pieces of information that are gathered in that process will be sent to labs for further testing. So that answer is pending. and it will take days and weeks to complete those particular investigations.